Okay, so the assignment is for you to draw a site sketch of the Pam Jones home that is in your class materials. Depending on what we're doing in the class, you may also have the option of drawing a site sketch of the home that you currently live in, or a home that you've recently visited would be fine. But the drawing that I have on my screen right now is an example that I drew a few years ago, and it actually has more than is required. So when you're drawing a site sketch, at a bare minimum, the goal is that you're actually going to draw the thermal boundary of the home. So you want everything on the thermal boundary represented. So that would include all of the exterior walls, all the windows and doors that are on the thermal boundary, and your attics and foundations. When you're drawing this, it needs to be drawn to scale. So in this example, I used this graph paper, and each of those boxes or grids represents 2 feet. So I've drawn it to scale. That way, when you're communicating the amount of materials and what's going on the site to others in your organization or to subcontractors, you haven't drawn this great big ski-wampus appendage to the house that really is way smaller or way bigger than the way you've drawn it. So make sure and draw everything to scale. And you need to put the dimensions, or put some dimensions on there so that people understand how long each of the walls and things are. You want to label all of your walls and your windows and your doors. And when you are filling out or you're using an XRF and you're doing a lead report, this becomes part of your lead report. You're going to use the labels that you put on the doors and windows on your XRF. So you would say that you lead tested window D, and you'd have an interior test and an exterior test on your lead test. So this becomes very important for your lead test, but also is very important just when you're trying to communicate things to people in your organization. And also, it's a really great tool when you're running your audit, just to make sure that if you're labeling all your windows A through G, then when you're putting them in that you've put all your windows in once you've got them all listed. So here's an example. The other important thing that needs to be on there is the direction. So we need to know which way is north, because we need to know which way the walls are oriented. So make sure that that's on there somewhere. And it helps if you'll put the client's name on the drawing in case the drawing ever goes missing. But this example, as you can see, it's just a little rambler. It has a crawl space or a slab on grade, so there weren't any basement windows to document. So it's pretty straightforward. Now, a lot of homes you'll get into are going to be a lot more complex than this. So you'll want to do a drawing that will be a good representation of what's going on, so people can understand it and so they can picture what the thermal boundary is. But we're doing 2-dimensional drawings to try and explain a 3-dimensional object, which sometimes can be difficult. I want to show you an example of some of the homes in Salt Lake, where the Salt Lake County Recorder has actually gone out and measured the homes already. I really like the way that the county recorder was documenting the homes, and I just wanted to show you that, and then I'm going to show you an example of how to draw one kind of step by step. So there's the picture of the front of the house, and you can see it's a split level entry and it has a garage. And to draw a 2-dimensional drawing of that, the county recorder just measured each of these square or rectangular sections of the home. And so for the attached garage, the recorder wrote that the garage is 20 feet by 24. And we can tell, because this is drawn to scale, that this is the 24-foot wall and this is the 20-foot wall. And then they've drawn this section of the house and they've labeled it main floor with basement. So now you know by looking at this drawing, and sometimes you'll need to look at photos of the house as well, but you can see that there's a main floor and a basement. And over here there's another main floor and a basement, but there's a break there, so we know something's going on. We also can see that so this main floor with a basement is 17 by 24, and then there's some notes over it, but they've done a great job, and maybe this is a better example here or here. He's labeled the size of the overhang. So there's a back bay on this house with that's 9 by 2, so that's the width of that overhang, and this front overhang is 11 by 1. So just drawing some very simple so this is just a good example of how to simply draw a couple of squares and put your dimensions on there and have a document that is really quite useful. At the time, the agency in Salt Lake would actually print off multiple copies of this, and I don't know if they added this or not, but they've got the direction there. But they actually use different pages for different things. So they've got a HVAC layout, an ASHRAE ventilation layout, and things like that. So you can use this drawing for more than just labeling your windows and doors and stuff. In this case, you can see they've got the dimensions of the windows and doors, but they didn't actually label them for A, B, C, D, or whatever. So, you know, these examples I'm showing you may not be perfect, but I like a couple of the things that are going on in them. Anyway, so at this point, we're going to jump in and start drawing a picture of a house. So we're going to try and draw this split level home here, and just, you know, so you can see what's going on the house. There is a front bay, so there's a little bit of a, oops, there's a front cantilever on it. There is a back cantilever on it, and you know, there's a couple different layers on the home. There's you can see that there's a basement down here and stuff like that. So we're going to try and draw this house, and I'm going to show you how to draw it using the online Sketchup tool. So this version here is my desktop Sketchup. It's got a few more features, but I'll be clicking back and forth from the online version to this picture. So to get started, what I like to do is I like to imagine the house from the top, and it's quite easy for me to do that here, because I'm just going to click this button and it'll show me the house from the top. And so this is going to show me what my boxes should look like. So if I'm going to draw my thermal boundary on this house, I need to draw this box here. Maybe I'll change that. I need to draw this box here. I'm going to draw that bay. And there's a cantilever here. So I'm pretty much just going to draw a rectangle here, and show these bays, and then label it. And I am not so concerned about the unfinished garage, or the garage below, but I probably do need to draw that so that I can identify what's going on, because there may be some finished space below and more finished space above, so I've got to figure out how to show that on my drawing. So I'm going to slide my drawing aside, and we're going to go into SketchUp, and just the online version, we're going to create a new drawing in feet and inches. And I'm going to draw my first rectangle here, so I'm just going to orbit around a little bit. If you need to know how to use SketchUp, if you want to use it, you're welcome to. You don't have to. But if you want to learn more about it, I posted a video, just a quick getting started guide. So you may want to watch that one first, because I'm not going to recover any of the ground that I covered before. So in this drawing, I'm just going to measure some of my walls. So right here, I'm going to measure how wide the house is. So right here, the house is 22 foot 4.5, and from the, let's say from the back of this wall to the front of the garage is 39 foot 3 7/8. So 39 3 7/8 by, so we're going to say this is 39 foot 4 by 22 foot 4. So I'm going to draw this first box and then that cantilever, I hope. So 39 foot 4 by 22 foot 4. So I'm going to go to this drawing. I'm going to draw a rectangle that is I'm going to change my dimensions. So, and I like to kind of exaggerate what I'm doing sometimes just so I can see which dimension to draw to write first. So it looks like I need to go 22 foot 4 comma and then 39 foot 4 and hit enter, and that's going to draw that first rectangle. Now at this point I like to change this from a 3-dimensional drawing into a 2-dimensional drawing, because I'm going to draw this so that I can hit print and have a useful 2-dimensional drawing, but I'm trying to do it in a 3-dimensional world. So first thing I like to do is I like to get rid of the person, so I'm going to delete her, and then over here on the right hand side I'm going to select my views, and I'm going to switch to a top view, and I'm also going to switch from a perspective to a parallel projection. The parallel projection changes it into 2-dimensional. So this is going to give me a nice flat drawing. The other thing you can do if you want to, you can actually change the style, and you can change that style to like something that is more black and white type of thing. So if you want, that's the default style we're on. If you want, sometimes I'll change it to the construction document style, and so that's going to change this whole background to white so that when I hit print it'll look nice and clean. Then I'm going to pan a little bit so I have this in the right spot, and it looks like I didn't give myself enough room. I like to stay away from these access lines. I like to have them there, so I'm just going to select that, and I'm going to grab my move tool. I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to stay on either the red or green plane so that I know I'm not moving this up or down, I'm just moving it side to side. So I've moved it over a little bit. Okay, so I have my first box, and I might try, well, just click back and forth a little bit. So I just want to double check my measurements there, and maybe I probably want to put my my cantilever on here. Well, I'm gonna switch to basement. So we're gonna draw this without the cantilevers first. So let me verify my measurements again. From the back of the house was the 39 foot 4, I hope. Nope, I've got 39 feet. I'm glad I switched. I've done something slightly off. And then from side to side it was 22 foot 5. So let's go in and we're going to modify this. So this was 39 from front to back. So I'm going to grab my tape measure, I'm going to drag it this way, and I'm going to go 39 feet. And then from here to over here was 22 foot 5. So, and I hit enter. So if I need to, make some modifications, oh, that didn't do it. Let's go 22 foot 5, enter. So I'm just going to draw some lines and erase a couple things. So I'll snap there. I'll come all the way out to here. And up to here. And snap over. And then I'm just going to erase that line. have erased too quickly here. We'll add some stuff in and erase. No, I was supposed to erase that. And so now we have our 39 foot by 22 foot box. Now the other thing we want is we want the width of this. So I'm just going to measure from here over to here, 17 foot 7. Now one of the problems in doing this is you want to, I may get some weird measurements, so I just want to double check that I'm measuring on the same plane here. So that was 17 foot 3 actually. So we're going to go 17 foot 3, and then from front to back here is 24 feet. So we're going to add I'm going to just throw in some tape measure here. So I'm going to go 17 foot 3, and I'm just going to drop one right there in the back, and then I'm going to pull one up that's 24 feet. Was that right? Yeah, 24 feet. And we'll just add our rectangle over there. So now we've got this representation of the main floor, and this. We've got a bay over here, and let's go ahead and measure that. Looks like that bay comes out about 2 feet, and from here to here it's 8 foot 1. From here to here it's 5 foot 1. So we got a bay that's 8 feet long, 2 feet wide, and it's 5 feet across the front. So to draw that, now when you're drawing bays and windows and things like that, you don't have to be super precise. If I already know how long this whole wall is, it's not that important for me to figure out exactly where that base starts, because when I'm done, the surface area of the wall is going to be the same. So but you know, we want to have a rough idea of where everything is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll probably just pull my tape measure over. Let's go 2 feet, and then 8 foot, and then I probably want to go somewhere in the middle of this 8 feet, so that would be 4 feet. And then I'm going to come out 2 feet, and from here going this way I'd go 2.5 feet, 2.5 feet that was, and I would do the same over here, 2.5 feet, and then that way from here to here is 5 feet. So I'm just going to grab my pencil and I'm just going to draw in that bay, and then erase all these lines, get them out of my way. And so now I have that drawing there, or that bay drawn. In the back we had a cantilever that it stuck out 2 more feet, so I'm just gonna grab my tape measure and go back 2 feet, and we will just add another rectangle back here that comes right off the back. So now we have our cantilever and things like that. And then we have conditioned space and then unfinished garage here. So if this is our main floor, we got to figure out where our conditioned space is. So let's take a measurement on that. So from the back of the wall to here looks like 15 feet. So in our drawing, and remember this was the back of our wall, so I'm going to pull a measurement from the back of the wall forward 15 feet. Now in Sketchup, sometimes if you grab, in the middle of the wall, or if there's an inference point or something, it won't actually drag that dotted line. There's a couple of different ways to measure. So if you'll hit Control or Shift a couple of times, sometimes it'll switch to what you want it. Sometimes you have to just hit Escape and let go and grab the wall in a different spot, and then it'll give you that line you want. So we were measuring 15 feet, and I'm going to draw a line across there. So we have all of our walls now, right? So the next step is that we are going to put in windows and doors. And all we're going to do is we're just going to use our drawing tools to draw those in. We have a door right here that is 3 feet wide. So I'm just going to start measuring. Let's say it's about 12 inches away from that wall. It's 3 feet wide, which means when it swings open it would also be 3 feet. So we're going to draw a door in right there. And all I'm going to do to draw that door is I'm going to draw a line here, and then I'm going to grab the arc tool and I'm going to grab the arc tool. Sorry, it's still trying to draw something. We're going to draw pi. So I'm going to start from the, if you'll notice there's some notes down here. It says select the center point. So I'm going to draw there, and then it's telling me to select the first arc point. So I'll go up here and draw that, and then select my second arc point, and that's that. And then I can erase my little inference or my tape measure lines, and now I have a door in there. Some of you may actually draw these walls a little thicker if you want, or you may want to draw a box to show, your door. However you want, you can make that a little more pronounced if that helps. So that's that door. Now we have a garage door, which is also on our thermal boundary. So we're going to draw that garage door, and that's over on this wall. Let's say it's about 3 feet out. It's 3 feet wide, and it swings into the home, so we'll go another 3 feet. Whoops, 3 feet. And I think this one swings the other way, so again we'll just draw a line here, and we'll draw our pi arc. And if you like that box, you can draw in a box, and then delete all your reference lines. So we've got our 2 doors. We also have a sliding door back here, and for the sliding door it's pretty straightforward. You can just draw a box, and if you want to drag that box, now if you know how wide the door is, you can just use your dimensions. So down here in the corner I have my dimensions, and I'm going to slide this along, and if you'll watch the dimensions, you'll see that right now it's saying I'm at about 4 foot 10 3/8 by 4.5 inches. Well, this door is 5 feet wide, and then I can give it a depth. So I'm going to say I'm going to go 5 apostrophe for feet, comma, and then I'm going to go 4 inches for the width of it. So it just drew a box that was that size. And then if you want to show that it is a slider, you can grab your pencil, and you can split this up. If you hover around on the line, it'll snap to the midpoint. You can kind of draw a line there. You can snap to other midpoints, and you can show that this thing is a sliding door or a window or whatever you want here. So then I could erase some of these lines, so I could say, that's the slider if you want, or you can actually draw the lines out a little wider, whatever you want to just indicate there's a door or something going on there. On the back of this house, Well, we won't go to the back yet. Let's draw our windows on here. So this drawing, this drawing is going to be our main floor. So it's got the garage and it's got the basement. Actually, we'll call this one the basement. So this has the basement, which is so there really is no cantilever here yet, and there really is no cantilever there. So we'll fix that in a minute. And then upstairs, we're going to draw a different one. So maybe now's a good time to actually copy our basement and versus our upstairs. So I'm just going to hit the select tool. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to select this whole thing. I'm going to grab my move tool, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to move this whole thing this way. And as I'm moving it, before I click to set it down, I'm going to hit the control button and it will duplicate what I'm doing. So I'm going to hit control and I'm going to drop that over there. Now, if this is our upstairs, this would have the main floor and the upstairs section here, then this would actually be gone. We would want to delete that door. And we have a cantilever up there, so we'd probably delete that because that's really the thermal boundary upstairs. And on the main floor here, we do have the sliding door, we have this cantilever, and we have that door. But over here, if this is both of the basement parts and the garage, then we want to delete our cantilever. And I'm going to delete this cantilever too, because that's really not part of the garage or part of the basement. And we don't have this door because it's just a finished basement downstairs. We also don't have this rear sliding door. So I'm going to delete that as well. Alright, so hopefully that helps us make a little better sense of what we're looking at, what we're working on. So now let's go ahead and add in the windows that are on these thermal boundaries. To add the windows, let's first look at the basement. So back at my picture here, let me just zoom out a little bit. I probably need to scroll around the house here. So for our basement on this area down here, we have 2 windows on the side. We don't have any windows along the back. But then, so our basement is basically this room down here and then this lower room here. So we have these 2 windows and we have these 2 windows across the back. And then that door in the garage, and that's it for the basement. So these 2 windows are 4 foot by 4 foot. And the windows across the back are 3 feet by 4 feet. So let's go back to this drawing and draw them onto our wall. So these were 4 feet by 4 feet, and to represent them, all I've got to do is just click a box here, and I'm just going to make a box, and I'm going to use my dimensions. Now I don't even have to click again to let this go. I'm just going to start typing and change my dimensions to say 4 feet, 4 inches, and hit enter. So now I have a window there. I'll put another one roughly over here somewhere and go 4 feet, 4 inches, and there's my windows. So those are all the windows and doors on the basement part of our drawing. Now I'm going to scroll over to this part and we're going to put in the windows here. So let's go back to our house, go to the front, and we better take some measurements. So right now we're not so concerned about the height of the windows, we just want to know the width of them all. So this window looks like it is 2 feet wide. This window is 4 feet wide. And then we have two windows up top, which are each 5 feet wide. So back to this drawing here. We're going to draw in our boxes for our windows. This box was 4 feet wide, 4 foot, comma 4, and these ones were 2 feet wide. Now I'm going to draw these out here just to show you how to drop them on the wall and make them centered and stuff. So I'm going to draw the rectangle, and I'm going to change it to 2 foot, comma 4 inches, and I'm going to grab that. I'm going to grab not the move tool but this rotate tool, and I'm going to click on this end point. I'm going to drag out this way and click, and then it will actually let me rotate. And if you watch the dimensions box, it will tell me when I get to 45 degrees or whatever degrees I'm at. And if you'll notice, it's giving me an inference at 53.1 degrees saying I'm parallel with that wall. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. Now, before I move this, I actually want to make another one. So I'm going to make a copy using my move tool. Oops, I got to select that first. And I'm going to move a copy over to this side. I just hit Control to duplicate that. And I'm going to rotate that one around probably 180 degrees or 90 degrees. I don't know which. Yeah, I don't think we're quite where we need to be there, but we'll fix that in a second. So let's go ahead and move that. To be closer, and let's rotate it a little bit more. Just see if we can get it to go parallel. There we go. I had to touch that line to get it to. Gosh, still ain't working. I'm just hovering on the line that I'm trying to infer. Now we're where we need to be. Okay, so now I've got this window selected, and we want it centered on that other line. So I'm going to grab my move tool. I'm going to go right here, and I'm just going to hover down this line until I get to the center line. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to move it, and then I'm going to go down this other line until I get to the center line, and I'm going to drop it. So do that again with this one. I'm going to go, so this, I want this center point and this center point together. So I'm going to grab my move tool. I'm going to hover until I find the center point, and hover until I find the center point and click, and it's just dropped it right on where I want it. So that's a little cleaner than this where, you know, it's not quite centered. So if I wanted to, I could even move this, and I could possibly infer the center point, but I don't think it'll let me. Yeah, we're just going to move this until it looks about right and let go. So there's our windows there. Now we have windows up here, but they're not here. We haven't got this other line that we need. We need to know where the wall, see how the garage sticks out further than the wall? So I'm going to click on my main floor, and I just want to measure the distance from this wall back to here. And so to do that, I want to make sure I'm measuring the right place. So from there to there is 6 feet. So I'm just going to draw a line 6 feet back from the front. And then my windows are going to be on that line. And I've got those windows. Now on the back of my house, I've got a couple of windows up here and a kitchen window. So let's take a look at them really quickly. So these windows are 5 feet wide, and this window over here is 3 feet. So let's go ahead and draw our 3-foot window in here. Okay, so now we have all of our windows and all of our doors on our thermal boundary. Are we missing anything else that we need to be drawing on this sketch right now? Okay. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually add some dimensions and some detail to our drawing. Now, one of the drawbacks of Google Sketchup is that we are drawing in a 3D environment, and they have a cool tool that allows you to actually put some detail on, you know, some dimensions and stuff on to your drawing, but it's kind of set to a default where the letters are always going to be the same height. So if you zoom out, the letters get smaller. If you zoom in, the letters get, bigger or smaller. Anyway, I'll show you in a minute. So you got to be kind of aware of that. But basically what you can do if you want to use this tool to make your site sketch, this text tool is probably the best thing to use. So I'm going to zoom in here. And I want to, first I just want to name the rooms and put some dimensioning with them. And this text tool is designed where it's going to drop it either like on a line and then it'll give me a leader off of the line, or I can drop something kind of right in the middle of the room that will also have it, but it's going to be connected to that room. So if I drop something out here, it starts doing some weird things with the printing, and I'll probably get to that in a minute. But for now, I'm just going to drop a note here, and you'll notice it's actually figuring out how many square feet this is for me, so that could be valuable if you wanted it. But I'm going to change that to where it says that this is the basement. This is an unfinished basement. So and that area was 17 foot 3 by 24 feet. So I'd put that information right there. I'm going to do the same thing for this room. This is our finished basement. And that area was 22 foot 6 by 15 feet. Another area we probably want to label would be the garage below. So we could just put a note there and say the garage is below. And then we would want to start labeling our windows and doors. Now, I recommend that you label your doors as D1, D2, D3. So first thing I would do is just start labeling that here D1, and I'd label this one over here as D2, and then start on one level and go all the way around and then go to the next level when you're doing your windows. So I'd probably start on the main floor. I recommend that you do that in an orderly fashion. One recommendation that I've kind of used over the years is that you start at the front door and you go clockwise around or counterclockwise, whichever you choose, but just be consistent. So I'm going to go ahead and label the windows. Now, when you're putting the windows in the audit, if the windows are the same size and they're on the same wall or they're oriented in the same direction, you can pair those windows together. So if I'm going to start here, I'm going to label this window as window A. But this window is also the same size, and it's going to end up on probably on my south wall here. It'll say that the front of the house faces south. So I'm going to label this one as window A. And I'm going to label this one as window A. And I'll label this one as window B. And then I'm going to move around the house in a clockwise manner, so from here around. Label this one as window C. So we've got all the windows labeled. We got all the doors labeled. Now what are we missing? Well, we haven't labeled our walls or our attics or our foundations. So sometimes that labeling comes as you start to enter them into the audit. But I'm going to go to the basement and I'm going to label my foundation. Now, looking at the house from the front, we've got this, the garage, basically the garage and all the way back into this room. They're all on the same plane, and what that is just a, like a basement floor. It has a foundation around it, so it's not quite slab on grade. It's got this basement wall that we need to account for, but we've got, this whole area is all on one plane, and then this whole area is all on one plane. So for a foundation, I want to label this area as one foundation. I want to label this area as one foundation. And then in the garage, we actually have an exposed floor, so we'll label that as a separate foundation. This cantilever will be another foundation, and the front cantilever will be our last foundation. So we're going to label our foundations F1, F2, F3, F4. So go into here, and we'll start with this first one, and let's see if I can edit that text. So I'm going to delete the footage just because I don't really like it on there, and I'm going to say F1. So I've labeled that as foundation 1, and I'm going to go into this one, hopefully, and this is going to be F2. So now we have our foundations. Now we need to label our attics. Now our attics, we're going to have two attics. We got this one here and this one here. Those are the two that need to be insulated. They're on the thermal boundary. There is another attic here, and depending on how you evaluate it, you could make an argument to say that that is also on the thermal boundary or not. Really, the only portion of that attic would have a knee wall, which would end up being this wall right here. But if we may end up, since more of that wall is out of the attic than in the attic, we might evaluate that as an exposed wall, and basically evaluate the whole wall as one. So in this case, I'm not going to put this part of the roof on as an attic at all, because it's not. I will represent the entire thermal boundary in other ways. So in this case, I'm just going to label attic 1 and attic 2, and I'm going to do exactly what I did before. I'm going to take off the square footage and go attic A1 and A2. So I've labeled my attics and my foundations, but now I still need to label all my walls so that I can these labels will correspond not only with that lead report, but they'll also correspond with the wall code that I put into the audit. So on the unfinished basement area, let's look at our walls down there. So based on this picture, let me go to our basement, and let me just get rid of the main floor walls here. And I'm going to change the way we're looking at this and zoom around it. So here's our basement. And as we're putting our walls on this basement, there aren't any walls over here because this is a full height basement. Now this section here, we do have some half walls, and depending on how we're going to evaluate those walls, we may label those half walls. Where this back wall has a cantilever sticking out over it, we could evaluate that wall separately from the wall above it, or we could put it together with that wall. So it kind of depends on how you're going to evaluate it. Now, to keep things simple, I like to put all the walls together that represent the same type of building component. So let's look at this back wall real quick. So there's the foundation, which when we put a foundation in the audit, it's going to be represented. And then basically in this case, this would be the direction facing north, and we would end up with, we could add this surface area, this surface area, and this surface area, all three of those together, and we could say that they're all one wall because they're all made out of 2x4s or 2x6s. They all have the same exterior cladding on them, and they're all facing the same direction, and they're not buffered or anything like that. So we could actually put all three together in one wall. Or we could separate it out. We could say this is wall number, south 1, south 2, south 3. For the sake of this, I think I'll go ahead and label each of these individually so you can see each of the pieces, but just know you can combine them. Same thing here. You can combine this wall with, if you'd have to kind of imagine a line right here, because there's this portion here of the thermal boundary that we could represent. So back to our drawing here. Let's go ahead and label the walls. So I would say I'm going to label a wall because I have a wall here and a wall here and a wall right here and here in my basement. These are like 4-foot high walls here. This wall is a full height wall, and so is this one. So I'm gonna label those, and then I'd also label all of these other walls. So you can label your walls as 1, 2, 3, or you can label them as north 1, north 2. That seems to make the most sense. So I'm going to go ahead and start on my north wall, and I'm just going to drop a point in here somewhere, and I'm going to label that as N1 for north wall, or yeah, that is our north direction here. And then this wall up above would be N2. And then we kind of go around a circle and figure out which wall is which. So this wall here would end up being E1. Whoops, E1. And then we end up having this whole wall all the way across here. Some of it's up in the attic, some of it is exposed, but it stretches from the front to the back, and it faces east. So I'm going to label that wall as E2. And then my south-facing walls, so I'm going to label this one as S1. This will be S2. Okay, so now I think we have all of our walls, windows, doors, attics, and foundations labeled. So what's the one thing we're missing? We need to actually put a direction on here. Now you could argue and say we've got it because we've labeled our walls that way, but to make things easy and consistent, I highly recommend that you just put a direction on here somehow. And to do that, just grab the pencil and go up here somewhere and just draw a line and turn it into an arrow. You could try labeling that, but it won't work very well. But that's really all you need to do. If you wanted to, you could, do something like that. But it doesn't have to be beautiful. All right, looks like we're ready to go ahead and print this. You do have the capability of printing a PDF from this SketchUp web app, but because of all the dimensions, it does not really work very well. So in fact, to show you what that does, I'm going to hit Control P and show you that I can zoom to the right location, but it actually it's causing stuff to overlap that didn't really overlap before. And then once you do actually print it, then it makes it even worse to where it overlaps things to where it's almost unreadable. So the print capability from the app does not really work. What I recommend that you do is zoom to where you want everything and then do a print screen. So you just hit the Alt button and print screen and let go, and that's just going to capture a copy of the screen. Then if you'll just go to either Microsoft Word or Google Docs, basically just open yourself up a Word document and paste that image into the Word document. Now if you have the ability to crop the image, you could crop it down a little bit to get some of the crud out of the background. And then I'm probably gonna do a little bit of page setup to where, you know, I change this to landscape and probably go 0.2 on my margins, and then stretch that out to where it fills the space in a little better. So now it's legible. And then you could also put the client's name on here. Whoops. Don't want that. So client's name. And then you can print that and turn it into a PDF or just save the document, whatever. So anyway, that's probably the best way to print that. Sorry, it is a little bit of a workaround. But that gives you something that's drawn to scale using a tool that is pretty accurate and allows you to, you know, kind of copy and paste stuff pretty quickly. So give it a try if you like it. If not, you're welcome to just use pencil and paper.